Number 4 on the top 25 most interesting fantasy basketball players is Anthony Edwards. He is one of the best up-and-coming young players, and he is someone who is extremely exciting to watch. But are we getting too excited and drafting him too early in fantasy basketball drafts? Let's go!
Jordan open. Chicago with the lead. Bryant to Shaq.
Not a game. We talking about practice.
LeBron James with no regard for human life. Anything's possible.
Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
Curry for three. Wow! Unbelievable. Making it rain in New York.
We the North are now we the champions.
Not the destination, it's the journey. Mamba out.
G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy. And today we are powering through, going down to the number 1, and we are at number 4 on the top 25 most interesting fantasy basketball players, and it is Anthony Edwards, who is someone who is garnering a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement going into fantasy basketball drafts and into the NBA season this year. It all sort of started with, the early performances at the USA team and people just sort of getting very keen on what he can do. But the question that I have for everyone is he going too early, and when is the perfect time to grab an Anthony Edwards, and what team does he kind of suit in category leagues, in a points league? Where should we take him? Those are all the things that we're going to be answering today, and he is definitely someone that I think is a very fascinating player. He is I've said it before, I think I've tweeted this out a few times, that I think he has the potential to be the best player in the NBA. I really do see that level of upside for him. He is just crazy athletic. He can shoot it well. He can go on these hot stretches. And when he puts his mind to it, and when he attacks off the dribble with his athleticism and his ability to shoot as well, he can at times be unstoppable. But he is still a very young player. He's still, somewhat inconsistent. He's not a terrific playmaker. But there are still plenty of rooms to grow. But is it going to be this season that he becomes that guy that we are hoping him to be? We're going to talk about that today. So, but before we do, guys, if you haven't already, go and check out all the past players that we've discussed in the top 25 most fantasy relevant. There are a lot of great and fascinating players that we've gone a deep dive in and really looked at what they should be doing this season from a fantasy basketball perspective. And if you want all the players that I talk about, and more, go to ballboysnba.com and get my season guide with my top 150 rankings for categories and points leagues, my projections for all formats, 9-cat, 8-cat, -1, ESPN points, Yahoo points, and also top 250 Dynasty rankings, ballboysnba.com. Go and check it out for your drafts. All right, Anthony Edwards, number 4 overall on the most interesting. He is 22 years old. He is so young. He was drafted very young. I think he's the same age as Cade Cunningham, and he was drafted a year before him, which is always very, very surprising to me. His ADP, though, is very, very high. He is going on average in Yahoo 14.9, on ESPN 9.2. First of all, that's crazy. Do not be drafting Anthony Edwards at 9.2. He is not, in my opinion, a first-round player. He is not a first-round player in ESPN points leagues either, so I don't know why exactly we are drafting him as high as we are. To me, that is a terrible start to your draft, so I just want to get that off the bat straight away on ESPN. Do not draft him this high. Fantrax, he is going at 13.3, so he is basically the first player drafted in the second round most of the time, sometimes going in that first round, which again, I just think is too high. He did play 79 games last year, only missed 3, which again, people will froth over. He played 36 minutes, so not really any upside for that to go higher. And last year, in 9-cat, he was 40th per game in -1. So again, we're weighting the turnovers down, punting his worst category, which in this instance was field goal percentage, and he's the 33rd ranked player. In a Yahoo points rank, he was 26th. So again, even in a points league, he is not quite, or hasn't yet reached the heights that we are drafting him. Now again, he's been durable the last season. He's young, so yes, I do expect there to be natural improvement, but it is very hard to crack that elite level of fantasy scoring when there are such good players at the top there. It is very difficult to move those final sort of 5-10 spots up into the the first and early second rounds. So what do we think we can do with Anthony Edwards? Why do we draft him this high? Why is he going this high? And is it correct? Should we be taking him this high? Well, let's look at what he did last year from an actual production point of view. He averaged 24.6 points per game, 2.7, not 27, that'd be incredible. 2.7 threes per game, 5.8 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 1.6 steals, 0.7 blocks. He did it on 46% from the field and 75.6% from the free throw line. And again, his usage was extremely high at 30.6, so not a lot of scope for that to see an improvement again this season. And what I've also got on the screen there is last season, Karl-Anthony Towns, who's the second highest in usage in this team, played very few games. He missed a big chunk of the season, so I wanted to investigate to see how much did this help Anthony Edwards, and is this maybe inflating his numbers? And I was pleasantly surprised that it was quite similar. He averaged an extra point per game, 0.1 extra threes, averaged 0.3 extra assists, 0.1 more steals, and 0.2 extra blocks. The percentages were very similar. So I don't think that we are overvaluing him because Karl-Anthony Towns was gone last season and his numbers were higher during that period. So I don't necessarily think his averages are misleading from that point of view. So I think he can, at bare minimum, kind of replicate what he did last season, despite Karl-Anthony Towns hopefully being more healthy this season. I don't think that's going to come in and kill him. So if you're worried about that, I think we can sort of put that to bed. But what's it going to take for him to get to this spot where we're drafting him, which is early second and sometimes late first round? It's going to take a fair bit. If we think about the other players that are going around that spot, they have a few more things up their sleeve that Anthony Edwards doesn't have. A lot of them have elite free throw percentage. So if we compare someone like an Anthony Edwards to someone like a Jason Tatum, who is it's a bit of a similar scoring or a bit of a similar profile where it's a lot of scoring, it's a lot of threes. The assists aren't elite or anything by any stretch. Now Anthony Edwards beats him in steals, but he loses to him in the free throw percentage category, and that's the big thing here. So if he could get his free throw percentage to something like 85% and do a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, then yeah, he probably would make that level and make that leap. Am I confident that he does that after he's been doing this for his, previous several seasons? No, I am not confident in that happening. But if that were to happen, then again, you could, in a punt field goal percentage scenario, he would make more sense at that stage. But I don't think that I'm confident in saying that he will do that. The other thing is his field goal percentage going to get there? So is he going to be someone that starts shooting 50% from the field and becoming a positive in that one? Again, when he shoots as many threes as he does, I really think that that's not something that we can really expect. So it really, to me, is if you're looking for that from a per-game ranking point of view, it has to be the free throw percentage improving. But again, in the previous few seasons, he's gone, hold on as I just look this up. I think he's pretty much hovered around the same marker the whole time. So he went in his rookie season, 76.7 from the line, 78.6, and he's actually put up in his most recent season the worst of his 3-year career at 76.4. So it's all been around that 77% mark, which again isn't horrible, but when it's on big volume, it's not an extra thing to his game, which a lot of those first-rounded players, it is part of their game that boosts their value rather than slightly hindering their value. And that's a big, big difference with these guys in the early marks as well. Do we expect him maybe to become a big assist guy? I don't really see it. I don't think he's got that natural playmaking ability. He averaged 4.4 assists per game. Can he get it to 5.5? Is that even enough? Like if he gets that to 5 assists per game, I don't think that's enough to go from, what did I say he was in the -1 ranking? He was 33rd. I don't think that's enough to get him up to 14 where he's being drafted. It's probably enough to maybe get him to top 24, maybe a second round guy in that scenario if he keeps the steals and keeps scoring a little bit more. Maybe he goes from 24.5 points to 27.5 points. Again, if that doesn't come on improved efficiency, it's maybe enough to get him into the second round just. What we need to see him do is either improve both the assists to over 5.5 game and get the points up to 27.5 per game. And then his efficiency, we can sort of live with that. And then he kind of gets to that early second round mark. Or we need to see a dramatic improvement in his free throw percentage, which then also in turn helps his scoring as well. I think that the first is probably more realistic, in my opinion. So what I would usually like to do, and this is where we're going to finish the podcast here, is I think that we should be looking at him in either a punt free throw percentage or a punt field goal percentage build. And this is the specific situations that I think you can be drafting him in the second round, because points are hard to get. There is a very scarce amount of elite scorers in the NBA, and he has the potential to being one of the best this season. I do think that 20 points per game, 27 points per game is something he can do for sure. But there are obviously other good options around this spot as well, like players like Trae Young and Kyrie Irving that can also do that you are potentially drafting him ahead of. So why would you draft Anthony Edwards? Well, I believe that if you punted, so this is based off last year. Last year, if you punted the turnovers and the free throw percentage, he was the 21st ranked player per game. If you punted the turnovers and the field goal percentage, he was the 23rd ranked player per game. Now, I prefer to have him in a punt free throw percentage build because in a punt free throw percentage build, you are often filling a team with lots of other good field goal percentage bigs later in the draft. So his negative in field goal percentage is easier to cope with in that build than a punt field goal percentage team where, again, we've talked about big free throw percentage, volume, and high percentage guys are harder to get outside the first two rounds. So if you're getting him in the early second round, you're not going to have a pick until sort of the mid-30s, and by then, you're really hoping you're getting someone like a Jordan Poole at that situation. That's like a must-get at that sort of a spot. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to come back from, and you're hoping that your first guy you took is a really good free throw percentage shooter as well. So it can be done, but I think the best scenario is that he is drafted on a Giannis or a Luka or even an Anthony Davis kind of a team where you are looking for that scoring to go along with guys that potentially later in the draft, you can get those bigs like a Claxton, like someone, a Jalen Duren, or if you get him late enough, a Walker Kessler, those kind of guys who you've got those points early, so now you can afford to take a hit in the points at that sort of a spot, and those kind of guys will take over his field goal percentage issues, no dramas. Because, again, when you punt the free throw percentage, when you see the players, again, he was 23rd per game, 21st per game, but again, a lot of the guys ahead of him are those centers, are those guys that all provide a very similar type of value. So for me, it does make sense. I'd be happy to draft him in the second round if I had Anthony Davis, Giannis, or Luka. I think those are great pairings. If you really wanted to get him in the second round, if you've got someone like a Damian Lillard or a Steph Curry or someone like a Jason Tatum. Well, if you get a Jason Tatum, that's a tough one because, again, you don't have elite assists. Your scoring is great, but your assists are down. You're still going to need some free throw percentage, so you're looking for someone like a Jordan Poole, but you're still going to really need to get some assists. So I don't really like the pairing with Jason Tatum. It's going to have to be with someone who's really good in those assists. So, yeah, like a Lillard, a LaMelo Ball are probably two prime examples. If that's a pairing you do, then you still probably need to make sure you get someone like a Jordan Poole who will give you some great free throw percentage volume so that you can make up for that because, again, that will be harder to get later, and then you can start to fill out the rest of your roster from that point of view. And you start off really strong in points. I can see that working, but just so you know, he is probably not going to be someone that ranks in a 9 category or a -1 ranking. I don't think he actually gets to where he is going, but based on categorical scarcity and his fit in certain builds, I can see the validity in pairing him up with certain players at different spots. But just so you guys are aware, I really don't think he's going to get there when it comes to the end of the season in terms of his overall rankings and things like that. In the points leagues, again, when you're not having that, scarcity issues and things like that, I actually don't think he's all that great, especially in an ESPN league where, again, the efficiency is penalized a little bit more. I have him as the 20th best player in an ESPN league. There's a few players ahead of him that are more risky in terms of injuries, so I'm okay getting him more towards that 15, 16 mark, but where he's going there at 9 is absolutely craziness to me, so I don't think I'd be getting him anywhere close to that. In a Yahoo points, not penalized for the lack of efficient shooting, so he is someone that, again, he probably is someone you can look at the end of the first round. I've got him ranked 17th, but again, players like, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Ja Morant are all ahead of him. So again, probably around that 13, 14 range is okay for him. He's going to be around that mark, and he seems fairly durable so far up into his career with a few other those guys older. So I can see that. And maybe he takes another step forward. I've got him projected to score 26.4 points per game with 4.8 assists. He could exceed that. So again, end of the first, start of the second round. If you really are keen on him in a Yahoo points, that's okay. In an ESPN points, no, I don't think he's going to be going that high because of the inefficiency. So those are my thoughts on Anthony Edwards. Let me know down in the comment section below. Have you got Anthony Edwards in any of your drafts? Because you must have paid a pretty penny for him. Or do you think that you are going to target him in a draft that you coming up this weekend? He will be obviously a very fun player to own. He is going to be a superstar in the NBA for many years, in my opinion. I have a lot of high hopes for him. I'm just not quite sure for fantasy it comes this season, at least when it comes to an overall rankings point of view. So now we are going to go into our top 3. There are only 3 players for us to go through in this countdown. Here is the hint for number 3. Number 3, to me, has one of the widest, if not the widest range of per game production this season. He's a guy that has teased us for a while, but has yet to fully deliver on his potential. I change my mind about this player every day, and the preseason has got me thinking about it again and again, and I find myself going backwards and forwards. We're going to discuss about this player tomorrow at number 3. Get your guesses down in the comment section below. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.